Ladies and gentlemen, there's big news developing today in the world of wars and defense, which has evinced multiple reactions from across the globe. I'm talking about the United States plan of the development of Golden Dome. Now, this is expected to be a $175 billion space-based missile defense system that's aimed at countering threats from nations like China and Russia. Now, many say that this is inspired by Israel's Iron Dome and seeks to integrate ground and even space technologies to create an unprecedented shield against ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles. And that will potentially reshape modern warfare. Meanwhile, amidst all of this, we also assess India's defense preparedness. Recent tensions with Pakistan, they have signaled to India's robust missile defense systems and the ongoing military modernization that shows readiness to adapt to evolving global threats. But is indigenization of technologies and defense systems enough, and how much of dependence should we have on foreign imports, and how well equipped are we to handle wars of the future? Lastly, what do we need to do to maintain a competitive edge? We have several questions and, of course, a stellar panel to answer some of those questions. But before that, let's take a look at what Donald Trump, the US president, had to say on the Golden Dome project and Canada's willingness to join it as well.
I am pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years.
Well, strategic game changer, that's essentially what Donald Trump is stating with respect to this Golden Dome project. He says it will be developed in 3 years. However, strategic experts say that this could take longer and US could end up shelling much more than is being estimated. Let's take this topic across to our guest who's joining us tonight, Major General P.K. Sehgal, who's retired defense analyst. Major General retired Sanjay Soy is also a defense expert, and Major General retired Gigi Dwivedi, who's a strategic expert. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening on ET Now. Appreciate you taking the time out and speaking to us right here. Major General P.K. Sehgal, to you first. Now, you heard what Donald Trump is saying about the multi-billion-dollar Golden Dome missile defense system. Give us an understanding of why this announcement has been made now, the timing of it, and the decision of the United States to actually put in $175 billion. What does that really say about the nature of warfare and that we're looking at, the nature of wars that we're looking at in future?
Chinese are very rapidly expanding their capabilities. They're producing hypersonic missiles. So as Russia produced hypersonic missiles, as of today, America doesn't have much of a defense against that. So Donald Trump wants to make America absolutely and totally secure against the hypersonic missiles. As per my perception, it's a dream which is unrealizable as of now. He cannot achieve this in $175 billion and over a period of 3 years that he wants to do it. The idea behind is the Iron Dome of the Israelis. Iron Dome only protects critical assets and a few cities, not the entire country. And Israel is America is around 500 plus times bigger than Israel. Under the circumstances, if he wants to protect the entire airspace over the complete mainland of America as well as Canada, it has to be much bigger project, and it will involve 7 to 10 years minimum, and a lot more money, which will run into hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even closer to $1,000 billion. Secondly, any system that is put into place, it has to be tested. There has to be a test bed created. And after the tests are proven, then you go in for production, etc. It will take a long time. But that notwithstanding, the future of warfare is undergoing a huge change. Space-based weapon systems and space-based missiles are going to be the in thing. There is no denying the fact. Chinese created the ASAT capability. Similarly, the Americans have this capability, the Russians have this capability, Indians have this capability. And even we have the capability of satellites chasing satellites. America has 6 types of forces. They've got the Army, they've got the Navy, they've got the Air Force, they've got the Marine Force, they've got the Space Force. During this first tenure, Trump created a space force with a minimum of 70,000 troops. No other country
Right.
has officially created a space force
Right.
like the one that the Americans have created. That
Right.
notwithstanding, Russians and Chinese have categorically
Right.
stated that
Right.
it's a step towards militarization of space.
Right.
If Americans go ahead with this, obviously there is no possibility
Yes.
whatsoever
Yes.
of the Russians and the Chinese not falling through, and Indians also not falling through at a lesser pace. That notwithstanding, as far as we
Right, sir.
concerned, we modernizing our air defense
Right, sir.
in a very major way. If you recall, when General V.K. Singh was the chief of the
Yes.
Army staff, at one point of time he had said the air defense
Absolutely.
capability of the country was close to cipher. In the
Yes.
last 11 years, when Mr. Modi modernized it in a very major way,
Correct, sir.
we inducted the S-400, we
Correct, sir.
inducted the Barak system, we inducted the Akash air defense missile system, we got
Correct.
the Pichoras, we got the Osas, we got the Tangushkas, then we got
Correct.
several types of man-portable air defense missiles,
Right, sir.
the Igla and the Igla S. Then we got several types of gun
Right,
systems,
sir.
starting with the Tangushka. Then we got the L-70, we got the Zeus,
Right, sir.
all this, and to,
Right.
to coordinate all this and
Right,
integrate
sir.
all this, we
Sir,
got the Kashmir system.
Sir, I'm afraid I'll have to interject you here. Sir. But with due respect, we'll come to each of those points, during the course of the show, because you've touched upon very many points and very interesting points indeed that merit a discussion. But let me also get in comments of Major General Sanjay Soy. You've been waiting patiently. Now, China has been saying that the project carries strong offensive nature and it could heighten space militarization and an arms race. Would you agree with that? Are we headed into space wars, as China is alluding to?
Yes, in fact, Sumita, thanks a lot. The kind of technology which US is thinking of incorporating in Golden Dome, they are incorporating use of space and also trying to handle and destroy the space-launched missiles. Because at present, the kind of adversaries US, whether North Korea, China, Russia, or Iran, Russia and North Korea and China have the capability to reach the US mainland, and Iran is also developing it very fast. That is why it is very, very important that US has announced this kind of Golden Dome system, because at present what they have is a Patriot, which is a tactical air defense system, THAAD, which is a ballistic missile, and Aegis ballistic missile system, which is sea-based and shore-based. So with this kind of, since they would be using space technology in this, and Space Force has been made, that China has feel that this is a aggressive and offensive gesture by the America, because what President has brought out is that they will be able to tackle the countries when the missile takes off. That time only they will be able to destroy it before it reaches the American mainland. So China is talking of the weaponization of space, which is actually it is already happened, because at present the space is being used for the reconnaissance, for gaining information, for intelligence building, and also the countries have developed anti-satellite weapon system. India has also developed one. So weaponization of space is already on. China is making a hue and cry, but the America stand from American point of view. If we look at it, if America's adversaries are able to reach the
Yes.
American mainland, naturally America has to take actions to protect its sovereignty and protect its citizens from any attack from any country. That's why probably they are thinking of spending almost 175 billion. Though this is a conservative figure, some experts are saying that the figures could go even higher. And
Yes,
Trump
sir.
says that they will develop it in 3 years,
Right.
but though it may take slightly more time. And slightly additional point is we also have to think of
Yeah.
whatever success we have achieved at present, we also have to continue to develop further. We cannot, whatever has been used
Right.
today will not be applicable after 2 years.
Absolutely.
We got to also think on these lines. Sweta.
Absolutely, sir. And let me come to you, Major General Gigi Dwivedi. Thank you very much for patiently waiting. In what ways will this system influence international arms control agreements, or in fact provoke responses? What kind of responses are you estimating in terms of, developing their military expertise? When we talk about the space race, China is feeling offended. They say that this is an act of, it's an aggressive action that's being taken by the United States. What do you see across the globe developing in terms of defense strategies by at least least the major powers. So whether it's Russia, whether it's North Korea, whether it's of course Israel and China.
Well, Sumita, I hope you'll give me a few minutes for my patience as a reward. Well, firstly, we must understand the rationale behind Mr. Trump's Golden Dome initiative. You know, the geopolitics of the globe has changed dramatically, and today America sees a new axis that has developed, that is the North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran. And having served as a defense attaché in both China and North Korea, I can give you certain perspective of my own insight. The issue is that, firstly, the warfare is now gravitating more towards the aerial warfare, that is the missile as a main tool, and that we have witnessed in Ukraine, Russia, and also lately in India's standoff, that how the missile and aerial warfare is actually provide the cutting edge. Second point is that there's a quite a bit of intersect between these four countries, because when I was in North Korea, I know that Nodong missiles were actually the technology was shared with Pakistan, and today uh, North Korea has Hwang Sung missiles 15, which has a range of 13,000 kilometers, so they can hit America at any place. So these are the concerns that America has to develop the Golden Dome. Second point is that the ability of your defense depends how soon or at what distance you can intercept, and at what distance you can engage. So therefore, Golden Dome looks at engaging or intercepting the hostile missiles well before they can even enter the American airspace. So that is the basic fundamental, that you should be able to meet the threat before the threat manifests close by. And to that extent, the interception is most important, and detection. In this, what America is looking at to detect missiles through these satellites, constellation of satellites, and then to engage them with their own missile system. This is how this is going to work. But the point is that America, as a geographic region, is a huge landmass, and combined with Canada, it almost doubles up. So therefore, they'll have to go sequentially in a particular timeline, because this is not going to happen anytime soon. It may take a decade or even more, and even the financial also could escalate well beyond the $175 billion. My last point is that today, as you rightly said, how the warfare is changing, how the global alignments are, changing all the way. But I think that today we have to understand that there are two very clear, globe is divided into two very clear halves. One is the American-led NATO and Europe, and second is the Chinese-led Russia, North Korea, Iran, and others. So therefore, this is going to manifest in the time to come. And my last point is that every nation has to prepare as the warfare progresses, as the threat perception progresses. And even now, you saw in last the 4-day standoff how the aerial warfare has changed and how the whole dynamics are changing. In fact, I just did an article today in the first post where I brought out two important things, that air power is going to be the cutting edge in the future. So therefore, air domination is very important, and air domination can be achieved by the state-of-art aircraft, that is fifth, sixth generation aircraft, and of course the long-range missiles, which actually complement the air power. Sumita.
Right, sir. And very comprehensively, you've put across all of those points with respect to warfare that is going to be dominated, dominated by in the skies. In fact, let me take the point across to Major General P.K. Sehgal. So, when we are talking about, sir, about the Operation Sindoor, the big takeaway is the fact that now drones have become the first line of attack. They are comparatively cheaper as well than traditional weapons, fighter jets, and tanks, and that does complicate warfare. Now, my question is, how much should India rely on these devices, these drones, versus the big artillery and of course the bigger weaponry?
We've got a different role. As far as drones is concerned, it's a different role. Drone is in place of the aircraft. While the aircraft costs a lot, the missile costs a lot, the drone is a cheaper version, particularly for the poorer countries like for example, Pakistan, which does not have that much of a defense budget. For them, it's a symmetrical war Therein drones are far cheaper. Possibly they can get about 100 drones as against one fighter aircraft. And the drones can do a similar amount of damage that an aircraft can do. It depends on the quantum of the ammunition that he carries and the type of drone it is and the range of the drone. As far as Pakistan is concerned, they're getting lots of these kamikaze drones from both from China as well as from Turkey. But the Indian air defense system, particularly backed up by Akashtir, which integrates all the sensors, all the radars, all the air defense control centers, and all the weapon systems, is something that the Chinese or the Pakistanis did not think of. It turned out to be something far more potent than anything the world has ever seen before. This was rolled out only by DRDO last year and is proved extremely, extremely effective and very potent. 700 drones were launched by Pakistan over a period of 2 to 3 days. All 700 were intercepted. They fired also several missiles, and even the aircraft, none of them were able to penetrate Indian air defense. So we've got to strengthen the air defense further, and we've got to carry this Akash team to a much bigger level than what we have at present. Also, we got to put into place far more anti-drone capability. As of today, our anti-drone capability, of course, if the air defense has got it, but anti-drone capability has to be brought in a much bigger way. And India definitely, as far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, he wants to make India the manufacturing hub of drone warfare by 2030. The way IITs are contributing, the way the startups are contributing, the way DRDO is contributing, the way the MSMEs are contributing is something unbelievable. As far as Star Wars are concerned, once again, I want to tell you what Donald Trump is speaking today is nothing new. 1983, Ronald Reagan, when he was the president of America, spoke of Star Wars at that point of time. And then they carried out experiments with Star Wars, but gave it up after several years because of the absolute phenomenal costs that were involved. Even at that point of time, America came to a conclusion that Star Wars was not an affordable thing. But now Donald Trump feels that it would be affordable. It's very essential that America wants to destroy all the missiles that the Chinese fire or the Koreans fire or the Russians fire or Iranians fire in the boost phase. Missiles can be destroyed in the boost phase, in the mid-flight phase, or in the terminal phase. Easiest to do the boost phase because all these missiles, that hypersonic missiles, are highly maneuverable, and because of their ability to highly maneuver, it is easiest to destroy them in the boost phase, and that can only happen if you have a space-based weapon system, and that is what they're wanting to go in for. But as I said earlier, it's going to be cost prohibitive. It's going to cost billions of dollars more than what is projected, and it's going to be a far longer time frame. India too has to move towards this direction. The only country in the world.
Absolutely, sir. It's a longer time frame. Yes, absolutely. We have to. Yes, sir, absolutely. We have to move towards those defense capabilities. And you rightly said that we need to have far more potent anti-drone capabilities. In fact, some of those capabilities were on display, were exhibited by India's indigenous made missile system. And of course, the S-400s as well, which was, of course, not Indian, it was Russian. But definitely, this brings us to the point about the fact that India needs to rely and needs to develop those capabilities as well. But let me take that point across to you. Major General Sanjay Soy, how much is there a need to develop these indigenous weapon system, and how much should we prioritize, imports, given the fact that a substantial portion of the budget, at least 36% of India's defense procurement budget, was actually allocated to foreign imports? How much should we indigenize, and how much dependence should be there on foreign imports, given the fact that geopolitics is fast changing, and hence there are bigger challenges that are also emerging, given the fact that rivalries are now multifaceted and every country is relying on multiple other countries for their sourcing?
Absolutely, Sumita. Very, very important point, because we have to cover the gap between the technology which has been developed and used by our adversaries. Like if you take off whether it is Air Force, Army, or Navy, everywhere while our systems we are developing going Atmanirbhar, we are working towards self-reliance. But at times it takes more time, like in case of aircrafts, when we had to import Rafale because we were not able to develop our own MRCA in time, or in Tejas we have an issue of importing engines from America. So unless we develop a focus more on self-reliance, which is very, very important, and diversified, then only we can think of a totally. Till then, probably we'll have to have a mix and match, import the high technology system, which are latest state of art weapon systems and weapon platforms from abroad, and at the same time work toward developing these in the time frame with our scientists. Here is the point, because I realize if we want to focus only on defense, there's a need to develop the overall science culture. At present, everybody is thinking of doing computer application. Ultimately, we need to develop metallurgy. We don't have that kind of metallurgy to have the aircraft frames or tanks or guns or pistol barrels. I mean, these small little things, we need to have those kind of metallurgy. We don't have that kind of electronics. We don't have those kind of communication system. So our youth, India is a young country. We need to think of, startups have to think of, and government has to do the hand holding to develop the basic science. Then only this amalgamate into making a defense product. The defense product is amalgamation of ultimate of all these technologies. Then only we can focus, develop these further, make become self-reliant. Other thing is on the drone side also, you had mentioned that there's so much of a drone threat is emanating. We have been able to really take a good action. The drones were considered impregnable, like in Russia-Ukraine war or in Azerbaijan and Armenia war. Drone played a major role. However, with our layered defense system and ingenuity, ZU-23 and L-70 guns, which were getting discarded, were used with a fragmented ammunition to destroy these drones, and we could achieve 100% success. However, as I had mentioned earlier, we cannot sit on the laurels. We have to continue developing, and we have to work on the soft kill. We have to work on the laser weapon system. We have to work on the hard kill. We have to work on the destroying the launch bases. So, and their communication system. We have to think of the swarm drones. We have to think of the kamikaze drones. On the one side, defense, and on the other side, think of the developing the drones so that there's a fear in the mind of enemy, and we also have to develop the attack capability. Our youth is very, very capable. They are thinking out of box, and these drones are getting made in India. And I think with very soon we will become an export hub of drones, which is not a very big thing for our young people who are actually, as you see at present, 50% population below 25, 65% population below 35. So they are thinking out of, we are out of a different era, but they are coming out with totally different products, and they need to think something like we armed forces, that kind of jazba, that kind of josh, that kind of spirit, that has to be there. Time is very less. We got to work very fast. The way Pakistan is getting armed by China and Turkey and other people, they're using Pakistan as a proxy. We need to think of
Yes, sir.
in a very faster pace of indigenization. Sumita.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Right, sir. And we have been indigenization under the government's Make in India initiative in the space of defense. And, we were just talking about it a couple of days back. Some of these startups have gotten immense VC funding since the past few years. And of course, there is a heightened interest in some of these startups who are specifically in the domain of defense and drones. But we'll have to see how much of our military capabilities we can indigenize versus, importing some of them via tech transfers or of course, other ways of partnerships. But Major General R.R. Dwivedi, one aspect is developing your R&D and, of course, developing your indigenous capabilities. The other side is the budgetary part of it. Now, our military spending is currently the 5th highest in the world, according to, reports and what they're suggesting. It has consistently increased since 2014. But, however, it's only a small percentage of the overall budget. That remains very low when we compare it to, for instance, the United States or China. Why do you think that is the case? And with Operation Sindoor and India's new doctrine of treating every act as an act of war, do you think that is going to now be looked at differently?
Well, Sumita, let me take it in two, three parts. First and foremost, your defense spendings are entirely related to your threat perception. And today, India's threat perception has actually scaled up with two front, that is, cooperation between Pakistan, China, and even relation with Bangladesh not so good. So therefore, I think we need to review our defense budgets. And today, our defense budget is just barely 2% of GDP, and I think this need to be scaled up to at least 3%. The second point is operational efficiency versus indigenization. I just did a project on the Atmanirbhar self-reliance reality check. You see that, let me give you a case in point. Today, China has over 200 fifth generation fighters, that is J-20, and they are going to be giving Pakistan J-35, that again fifth generation fighter in time to come. So do we wait for indigenization? No. Our MCA project is going to take shape only after a decade. So where's the choice? Choice is to procure off the shelf. Otherwise, you are in a serious situation asymmetry. The second point is the ecosystem. You see, you cannot just be self-reliant in defense in a standalone mode. The Chinese today have become major manufacturer because their whole industrial system actually got scaled up. So therefore, we need to address the overall ecosystem of our defense and or the industry. Then only defense can scale up. Third is the R&D. India is spending just 0.8% of GDP on R&D, whereas a country like America is spending around 4%. China is about more than 2 to 3%. So therefore, R&D has to go up. And fourth point is, you see, we have to bring in interface between academia and industry. I teach in this top of the line business school in India, and that is one point that we need to be addressed. That we need to tap our intellectual capital and correlate with the industry. Only then we can be self-reliant. And lastly, you see, no nation is self-reliant. Even Chinese till very late we are importing engines from Russia and then flying their own fighter jets. Today, even the Eurofighter, the engines are still imported. The point I'm trying to make is that self-reliance and indigenization and operational efficiency have to be balanced out, because it should not happen that because of self-reliance, our operational efficiency goes down. So therefore, I think we need to take a broader look, have a 10, 15-year horizon in which while we are indigenizing, we are also have to import certain weapon systems. Like we cannot manufacture engines as of now. We are still depend. We have to depend on America either for F-404 engines or F-414 engines, or we have to depend upon France for the Saffron engines. Look, these are very, very high-tech, domains. So all I want to say is that we need to have a very clear 15 to 20-year defense policy in which we need to integrate our indigenization and our imports. They have to balance out. And last point is that you see, self-reliance is very important to be having sound security of your nation. If you are not self-reliant, then you are vulnerable. Now that vulnerability we have to decrease over a period of time, and only a very pragmatic blueprint can help us out in time to come. And I think we need to balance out our indigenization along with our operational needs. But in time to come, we need to move forward more on self-reliance so that our defense vulnerabilities are not exploited by the adversary. Sumita.
Absolutely, sir. And this is going to be a multi-year project. Even, when you speak about achieving self-reliance, and self-reliance can only be achieved till a certain point. And of course, we have to develop, be based and of course, coordinate with other nations for importing some part of that technology transfer. But Major General P.K. Sehgal, when we speak about the transfer of technology packs with countries, our reliance, like I was stating earlier, on a single country actually exposes us to geopolitical frailties. And hence, all the more important for India now to have diversification in tech transfers as well. Could you speak a bit about that in terms of, how our strategies should be devised, these defense strategies for, tech transfers, because there is a cyber angle involved as well. There is a security angle involved too.
Absolutely true what you're saying. At one point of time, our dependency was totally on Russia. Almost about 60 to 70% of all the defense equipment with the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force were ex-Russia. We certainly came to a conclusion that we cannot depend on one country only. As long as the Soviet Union was there, we used to get spares, etc., and weapons on friendly terms. And in terms, we used to export to them only bananas and other things, etc. But once Soviet Union collapsed and Russia came into existence, everything was now commercial. And they were also as Jewish as the Jews. When the Kargil war took place and the other 2 rupees that we used to import from Russia, they raised the price to 2,000 rupees. So we then realized that it is absolutely essential that we diversify our basket. Then we started going in for imports from Israel and France because they always stood with us. These are the 2 countries which have always been with us right from the time India decided to fight the 71 war, and even when we carried out the nuclear explosion in 1998, it was only France and Israel which completely stood by us despite sanctions. It's only much later that we started importing equipment from America also. That too also we got to make sure that our dependency on America, etc., is not of the extent where, like for example, Predator drones we got, and we were getting the Romeo helicopters. Even the transfer of technology for the G414 engines, they're saying we will give you 80% technology. The 20% critical technology, which is actually more valuable than the 80% they're withholding. Even the same thing for G404. Similarly, as far as Russians are concerned, while we got in for earlier, they were giving us all the technologies that we wanted, but withheld the 10% critical technologies. Now they are offering us the Igla S missile with 100% transfer technology. They're now offering us the S-500 air defense missile system with 100% transfer technology. Yes. Should we go in for a manufacture of the 5th generation aircraft with Russian systems? They wanted to give it to us with total 100% transfer technology. Similarly, we are insisting that if we go in for production of Rafale aircraft within the country, we are insisting that they give us 100% transfer technology. Similarly, whatever drones, etc., we bought certain types of radars. Yes. We buying the Barak system from Israel. We got the Green Archer radar from there. We got the 2 variety of drones that we use against Pakistan from. I said earlier, we spending only 0.7%, not even 0.8, 0.7% on R&D, whereas America is spending over 3.6% and China is spending 2.5%. We've got to ensure that much greater emphasis is given on R&D. Government is quite visionary. If you remember, we had 42 ordnance factories which were inefficient, and I will say the armed forces did not have confidence in the weapons that were being produced there, or even the arsenal, ammunition, etc. They've been restructured and corporatized into 7 different. Even the DRDO was told perform or perish. Those people who were at the head of the DRDO when Prime Minister Modi took over, they were all dismissed, and newer and fresher brains were put into place. And we are now ensuring 16 Tejas is being produced in a year. Tens of countries are wanting to import this equipment from us. Similarly, the rate of production of BrahMos, etc., is far too low. We got to increase the rate of production. Similarly, the rate of Pilakas, rate of India manufactured ATAG, which is one of the finest medium range artillery system in the world, has to be much faster. Similarly, we've gone in for a 100% transfer technology. We are insisting now getting the Vajra gun. We had initially imported 90 of those guns, which are mounted on a tank chassis from South Korea.
Correct, sir.
They proved very effective against China in the world more, but now we are insisting on transfer technology.
Correct, sir.
As far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, if you remember, before he came.
Correct, sir. So we need to build on those. We need to build on those efforts that we've already been making with respect to these transfer of technology initiatives, whether it's with BrahMos or whether it's with some other equipment with other countries that we have partnerships with. The most important point that you mentioned about is the fact that R&D needs to go up, research and development budget needs to go up. Just some final thoughts, Major General Sanjay Soy, and I'll come to you, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, but to you. Major General Sanjay Soy, while Operation Sindoor was successful in thwarting attempts by the Pakistani side in terms of our defense capabilities, but what are some of the lessons that we can draw from the operation for our future military engagements?
In fact, yes, very, very important, so that whenever somebody tries misadventure, we are better prepared. Actually, our defense and offense capabilities were proved beyond doubt, and we were able to thwart all the attacks, and we were able to carry out pinpoint attacks in their deep inside the most protected area in their airports. So that was a great success. However, as brought out by other speakers, and you had also highlighted this issue of one is geopolitical situation. Ultimately, we will have to fight the war on our own. Ultimately, we have to have our own system. Indigenization, just short-term gaps are required. That is where probably we need to think 10 years ahead. Today, if we are thinking AMCA, that fighter aircraft will come after 10 years and we have to import the aircraft, that is not the thing. That should not happen by 2047. We should be thinking of what is the technology in future. We have to think out of box. We have to think differently. And also, the diversification is good so that we are not dependent on one country. However, it also raises the issues of command control issues, because communication system of American equipment is different, communication system of Russian is different. So when amalgamation is very, very difficult to take place. That is where probably one sector we can import from one country and the other, like we have been importing submarines from France. That is good. So that one kind of system is there. However, transfer of technology is very, very important, because of competition now between Russia and America and France. Countries are willing to transfer full technology to India, as Russia is doing, whether in case of Sukhoi or in case of BrahMos. And we have been able to export also BrahMos and to other countries. So
Right.
that is very, very important. We should insist, and we are
Right, sir.
insisting on these things. And one more thing is, because of this, ultimately we need to have solid friends across the globe, and export industry with the indigenization will also grow.
Absolutely.
Last year we were able to export 21,000
Absolutely.
crore, and we are growing with every year. That ensures employment, foreign exchange, and also ensures good
Absolutely.
friends across the globe, and also helps in countering the China with that necklace of
Right, sir.
diamond, whether it is the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, we can become friends with them.
Right, sir.
Sumita.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. So the diplomatic reach is equally important, and which is what the government has undertaken with the latest diplomatic outreach to global capitals. We do hope that it yields actual returns in terms of our diplomatic engagement with all of these countries. But final thoughts from you, Major General G.G. Dwivedi. What do you think should be our near-term priorities?
Well, first and foremost, Sumita, defense and diplomacy are two sides of the same coin. So they have to go simultaneously. While you deliver militarily on the battlefield, but you have to also ensure that diplomatic environment are conducive to you. In this, Op Sindoor, I just, as I said, did the article today, that first and foremost, we must understand that war clouds can build up very quickly. So therefore, we have to be prepared all the time, because you don't get enough warning when such a situation takes place. So my first and foremost point is that we need to be ready at all times. And to that extent, we need to actually fast forward our defense reforms, because the whole process takes years and years together, and that is actually adversely reflects on operational efficiency. The second point is we need to have a very clear-cut national security strategy. So far, that is not in place. And so also, what type of war we want to fight? Because today the threat perception, as I said earlier, is multifold. It is not only two front, but there are multiple front that we have to secure. So therefore, we need to have a very clear-cut, doctrine as to how we want to fight the limited wars. And 2 points, Samita, are very, very important. First and foremost, we need to have integrated approach. That is, all three services, air, navy, army, they all have to be in sync. So therefore, integrated approach is very important, and that means whole of nation approach, because today wars are not fought by only services, they are fought by the nation. The second issue is, as emerging power, we need to have power projection capability. That means air domination is vital. It is the air is sword arm. It's not a supporting arm as once mentioned by one of our top military leaders. It is a sword arm. So we need to have very strong air force, navy. We have to have naval projection capability. We are still debating whether we need
Right,
to
sir.
go in for a second aircraft carrier. We need to do that. And thirdly, our airborne capability is very, very important. And lastly, Sumita, defense is 24/7, 365. It's not a seasonal, activity. It has to be going on all the time. And India needs to prepare very well, both in long-term and short-term perspective. Sumita.
Absolutely, sir. And with those thoughts, we leave this discussion at that. We do need to focus on budget. We need to focus on R&D, on having, the right kind of diplomatic outreach, and of course, have enough funds for capital acquisition and modernization efforts. On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much once again for taking the time out and speaking to us right here on ET Now on this very crucial story that we're discussing on the channel. Thank you very much once again.